How did Jim Crow laws affect housing? Have you ever wondered how laws from the past still shape where people live today? The Jim Crow laws, which enforced racial segregation in the southern United States, played a huge role in determining housing for African Americans. These laws created a system that kept Black families confined to certain neighborhoods, often with fewer resources and opportunities. At the heart of these laws were practices that maintained separate living spaces. African Americans faced systematic exclusion from many neighborhoods through racial covenants. These were agreements that legally prohibited the sale or rental of property to Black individuals. This meant that Black families were often forced into specific areas, which typically had substandard housing and limited access to essential services. One of the most impactful practices was redlining. This started in the 1930s and continued into the 1960s. Redlining involved government-backed maps that marked neighborhoods where Black people lived as high risk for mortgage lending. This effectively blocked African Americans from obtaining home loans and purchasing homes in more desirable, predominantly white suburbs. As a result, Black families struggled to build wealth through homeownership, which is a key way to achieve economic advancement in America. Public housing policies during this time also reinforced segregation. African Americans were often placed in segregated public housing projects, while white families had better access to suburban homeownership opportunities. By the mid-1960s, many public housing developments were almost entirely occupied by Black families due to white flight to the suburbs. This left African Americans concentrated in less desirable urban areas. The impact of these housing policies went beyond just where people lived. Segregated neighborhoods often suffered from disinvestment, fewer job opportunities, and increased policing. This created cycles of poverty and social exclusion that were hard to escape. Discriminatory practices, like crime-free housing ordinances, later echoed the exclusion of the Jim Crow era. These allowed landlords to evict or deny housing to tenants based on criminal records, disproportionately affecting Black residents. In the 1960s, these housing injustices became a significant part of the civil rights movement. Activists and the counterculture movement challenged these discriminatory systems, demanding equal housing rights and integration. The fight against housing segregation was closely linked to efforts to dismantle Jim Crow laws and achieve racial equality. Jim Crow laws and their associated policies had a lasting impact on housing by enforcing segregation, restricting Black homeownership, and confining African Americans to marginalized neighborhoods. These practices created economic and social disparities that civil rights activists of the 1960s worked hard to overcome. The legacy of these laws still influences housing patterns and racial inequality in America today.